Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mriturma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you and welcome to Spirituality Basics. As you know, that it's a platform where I discuss some basic topic on spirituality, primarily with the objective of increasing awareness on spirituality. And of course, you get to know something about what we discuss. Now, as I was saying, today's topic comes straight out of the retreat that we had in Shyamlatal, how to manage anger. And I'm sure, it's a question that all of us face. All of us do get angry sometime or the other. So first we'll see what is the nature of anger, what it is, and especially with reference to the Bhagwad Gita. Then we will see what harm it can do to us. And then also we'll briefly see what are the positive sides of anger. Anger is not bad per se. There are some positive sides, so we will have a look at it. And then finally, how to go about it. Basically, how do you manage your anger? Now, going to the definition of anger as such, it's a very wide definition, Oxford, it says that it's a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. Even a little annoyance is anger, displeasure is anger, hostility. Hostility is the extreme, it results in fury or those extreme kinds. So it's a huge bandwidth, the definition of anger. And I'm sure all of you must have experienced, all these emotions in different measures. After all, we are all human beings, and we have emotions. We have positive emotions like, love, compassion, helping others. And we also go through negative emotions, which are like your anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, all these negative emotions. Now, Bhagwad Gita gives a absolute threadbare why analysis of this negative emotion of anger. So it gives the highest philosophy about this emotion of anger. Chapter 2, which contains the principal teachings of Bhagwad Gita, it also dwells on the dangers of the sensory pleasures, dangers associated mainly with the attachment to the sensory happiness. And it also shows how our mind functions. So I'll take up two very important verses in Bhagwad Gita. So verse 62,
ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसाः संगस्तेषु उपजायते संगत संजयते कामः कामत् क्रोधो विजायते.
So it means while contemplating on the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. Attachment leads to desire, and from desire arises anger. I will take up the next verse also, 63, and then we'll go into the explanation.
क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रामः स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति.
Anger leads to clouding of judgment or delusion, which results in bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, the intellect is destroyed. And when intellect is destroyed, one is ruined. The spiritual answer of how anger arises in us and what damage it can do, these two verses are very clear. In fact, Sri Krishna, he has done a absolute root cause analysis, in verse 62, and says that when we enjoy the sensory happiness given by the sensory organs, we develop an attachment to them, and thinking continuously about them, dhyato, constantly contemplating, and on what? On the vishayan, the sense objects, sangaha teshu. We develop an attachment, and from attachment comes desire, kamaha, and from desire comes anger, krodha. Though actually, if you strictly look at it, it's from an unfulfilled desire that krodha or anger comes. And then in the next verse, what Sri Krishna says about the effects of anger, it's again very dangerous. It says that anger impairs our judgment. And in anger, when you are angry, we commit mistakes that we often regret later. At the half of the moment, we say something and we regret later. Why? Because at that point of time, our intellect is clouded. Our intellect is clouded by the haze of emotions. Sammohaha. It often happens that, we, to take an example, we speak badly to maybe our parents or to some elderly people. But later on, we realize our mistake and we think that maybe he is so much elder to me, and why did I speak to him in this fashion? And what happened to me? Why did I speak? So what actually happened was that the faculty of judgment, that was affected by anger. And so we made the, mistake of speaking badly to that person. Now, when the intellect is clouded, it leads to bewilderment of memory. The person then forgets what is right and what is wrong. And he just flows with the surge of emotion. It does as per his past samskara, without letting the intellect get into play. Sri Krishna goes further. He says this downward descent continues from there, and the bewilderment of memory leads to the destruction of intellect, buddhinashaha, and since the intellect is our internal guide, when it gets destroyed, one is ruined, spiritual ruin. Now, if you see, there are, in these two verses, there are 8 links. First is constantly thinking about the sense object. You are having an ice cream, the taste is gone from your tongue, but that thought remains in your mind. Yes, it was tasty. Constantly thinking about the sense objects. Secondly, then when you constantly think about it, we develop attachment to the sense objects. You start mentally thinking, yes, that ice cream was tasty. It was nice. I had a nice feeling after that. So it's not the tongue who is doing this. It is our mind which develops this attachment. Although the root is through the tongue. Now from attachment comes desire. If I'm constantly thinking, yes, the ice cream was nice, I got happiness out of the ice cream, then the desire comes of having more of the ice cream, either of the same type or of a different type. I must have it. That also, again, happens in the mind. Fourth, when the desire is obstructed, nahi ice cream khane nahi jana bahar, then anger comes to the mind. Get angry. And what it does, it results in clouding our judgment, delusion, that what happens. You can say anything. If someone who stops you, you can even give him a punch. From delusion comes loss of memory. Loss of memory means, it doesn't allow your intellect to function. It is loss of all the good learnings that you had in the past. And when intellect fails, we take wrong decisions. and finally you fall away from your spiritual life. And it's true in secular life also, but they say in this process you fall away from the spiritual goals. Again, going back to Bhagwad Gita, in Bhagwad Gita, Sri Krishna does not make any difference between desire and anger. We see this again very important verse, chapter 3, verse 37. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha,
Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava mahashano mahapapma vidyanam iha vairinam.
the Supreme Lord says that it is lust alone which is born out of contact with the mode of passion, kama, and later transformed into anger, krodha. Know this as sinful, all-devouring enemy in the world. It's an absolute straightaway warning. Kama esha, krodha esha. They go together. Anger and desire are both are born out of rajas, rajoguna, and they're like hungry ghost, all-devouring, mahashano. And what they can produce? They can produce mahapap, which is great sins. So be alert. And even a little before, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that even a person endowed with discrimination, endowed with the power of discrimination, viveka, and who practices self-control, even he can be swayed with the pull of sensory pleasure. But forget about us. Even that kind of a person, he can be swayed. So powerful are our old samskaras, the traces of happiness which are there in our mind that we have received in the past. I mean, not only this lifetime, many lifetimes. The same psyche, the same philosophy was used when Pepsi introduced its tagline, that famous tagline, "Ye dil mange more." So you had that first Pepsi, you liked it, so ye dil mange more. That's our mind functions, all of us. So the real culprit, you can say, is the desire, because there cannot be any anger without desire. Anger is always a secondary emotion, comes out of desire. So desire has two children, which are anger and greed. Now, desire can have two results. Either the desire gets satisfied. So if it gets satisfied, very good. But it doesn't end there. If it gets satisfied, crave for more. Lobha, greed. That comes within our mind. And if it is obstructed, then comes anger. I mean, you can map it to any angry situation that you have faced in your life, and you will, if you do a why analysis, if you backtrack, you will find some desire, lurking behind it. This desire can be a hankering or an aversion. This something should happen or something should not happen. I mean, it could be an object of sensory pleasure, like I want this ice cream, I want that car, or it could be even relationships. Love relationships. I mean, why didn't she call? You're expecting a call, why didn't she call? You're angry with her. So if you see, the world is not a problem. The attachment to it is a problem. Now, if you say that you will experience it but not get attached to it, excellent. I mean, I want to have that ice cream, but I just forget about it. I don't develop an attachment to it. Sounds nice, very difficult to implement. Your mind plays a trick on you. So it is very, because if you are able to do that, I mean, you are already an enlightened person. Now, as I said, that all of us do get angry at some time or the other. All of us. I mean, let's accept it. And it is also said that the absence of anger is the quickest way to peace of mind. So important is this negative emotion. And also it goes further that holding on to anger, if you hold on to it, it is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That you are drinking poison and you are expecting the other person to die. So why do we get angry? If it is so bad, that why do we get angry? It happens because your mind is not taking instructions from you. Mind means the intellect. If you see that we have no control over the conduct of others, I have no control over how you are going to behave the next moment. So many people will do so many things you may not like. We all face that. We have no control. It's your mind, it's your action, it's your thought. But what you should have full control over your faculties. Within you, only what you want should happen. So you should be able to create that layer, that cocoon around you. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body must happen the way you want it. If someone else decides, what should happen within you, I mean, this is you can say it's the case of ultimate slavery. As I always say, do not outsource your happiness. But then first you will have to realize this. First you will have to intellectually understand, yes, I want it to happen. Then only it will happen. When something you want doesn't happen, it is at the level of the mind. And what happens? You get angry. The easiest way is to give up your wishes. That's a sign of spiritual maturity. So now, is anger good for us? I mean, so far we have seen that it's not good for us, but it is yes and no. A very small yes, but a big no. Because when you hold on to it for long periods of time, you turn it inwards or explode or implode in rage, it can do havoc on your body and mind. So what are the fallbacks? First, an angry outburst puts your heart at great risk. Most physically damaging is anger's effect on your cardiac health. It is said that in the first 2 hours after an angry outburst, the chances of having a heart attack doubles. And if it is a case of repressed anger, where you express it indirectly or you just trying to control it inwards, then it is associated with heart disease. And it's been found, there is a study which found that if you are prone to anger as a personality, we have some persons who are prone to anger, the short fuse as we call. If those kind of persons, they run the risk of having a coronary disease, heart disease, twice as a person who is not prone to anger. Secondly, related again to the first point, anger ups your stroke risk. If you are prone to lashing out, there is a study, empirical study, which says that you run 3 times the risk of having a stroke from a blood clot in the brain, which happens 2 hours, from an angry outburst. Next, it weakens your immune system. If you are mad all the time, you might just find yourself feeling sick more often. There was a study done by Harvard University. They found that in healthy people, simply recalling an angry experience in your mind, you are recalling an angry experience, and which happened in the past, it causes a 6-hour dip in the levels of the antibody immunoglobulin. Anger is also linked to depression, and there are numerous studies. They have linked depression with the aggression and angry outbursts. The study says, especially in men. So I don't know. I mean, I've just read it somewhere, especially in men. I'm sure it happens in women also. So in depression, we call it the passive anger, where you ruminate about it, but do not take any action. It's there simmering in the mind, and then it leads to depression. Next, anger can shorten your life. It is again absolutely proven that happy people live longer, and stress is very closely linked to our general health. If you are stressed out, if you are angry, you are in fact shortening your lifespan. Now come to the positives of anger. Although, as I said, the positives are a very small part and negatives are of course huge. The first is the empowerment to defend. Anger is a very empowering feeling, which allows us to the fight or defend ourselves when we are attacked. When you are having this feeling of powerlessness, helplessness, scared, or even victimized, so anger comes to the rescue. It gives us the courage to defend ourselves, not only us, even those we love. Therefore, we need some amount of anger for our survival. Secondly, it warns others not to take advantage of us. Linked to this, it warns others. You may not harm others, but you can send out a warning. Third is motivation to improve yourself. You can use. It's not exactly anger. It's sort of a challenge to yourself that yes, ये करके दिखाना है. So it's a as I said, the definition of anger is very wide. So in this kind of emotion, that little bit of annoyance, little bit of angry with yourself, you can do positive things in a better way. You can get angry with yourself, and if you're not able to do it, why am I not able to do it? Let me try and do it. But then good things. Finally, anger to improve others. Again, we have gone through this. We have all been scolded by our teachers in our school, and not in colleges, but in our school. So, but then what did the teacher want? If he scolded you, that was for your good. To make you understand what is good for you. So that anger doesn't stay. We say that only he who loves, he can punish. And same holds for guru to disciple also. Sometimes your guru may, get angry with you, but then that's for your own good. Now, the big question finally to how to go about it. We have all seen how it arises, what are the good things, bad things, then how to practically go about it. Just touch upon a few points. First, do an activity you enjoy. You can use it as a first aid, short-term cure. Any activity which absorbs you, it's a good cure for your anger. And but what they do, again, all these are acting at the mind level. They just divert your mind for the time being, and they pull your focus towards the present moment, to the activity which actually you are enjoying. So instead of getting angry, you are enjoying the activity. Because as I said, when we discussed mind, that your mind fortunately can tackle only one thing at a time. So if you are replacing your anger, your negative emotion with something positive, something which you like to do, the anger, only when the anger goes out, that comes in. Second, it's Let It Be. It reminds all of you old timers, you might have heard this famous Beatles song. Again, I am reminded of, I've quoted it often, what we were taught during our teachers training course in the Uttarkashi, the Himalayas. What is the highest form of yoga? And the answer was, peer insult, peer injury. It's very difficult. But what indirectly it implies that, you should not be in a reactive mode. Because the reaction, insult and injury, the natural reaction is anger. That's a natural reaction. Then if you're angry, then you're outsourcing your happiness. Because what the other person does is his karma. And maybe part of your karma also. Because if something bad was to happen, so it happened. But don't get worked up. Don't spoil your health and mind by reacting to it. Second, make peace with both sides. Is it possible that all your desires, all your wishes are fulfilled? Is it possible? I think we all will say no. We all have many wishes, many desires. It's not possible. So how to go about? There are two possibilities, as I said, that either my wish is fulfilled or it is not fulfilled. It may not get fulfilled. So what it says that you make peace with both sides. If you make peace, then you will not get angry. When you are faced with this intense urge that what I want has to happen, just release it. Just release it. It may not happen. Okay, fine. Because if you are playing any game, any match, only one person can win. I mean, both cannot win. So it is better. So if you accept beforehand, whatever happens, it will be acceptable to me. So you will not get angry. Then comes a very important point: divert your desire. It is very, as I said, very difficult to be desireless. If you say that wish away all your wishes, very difficult, impossible. The way around is, we all have desire, but today it is directed at worldly things. So all the sensory pleasures, they are all worldly things. So they are directed at worldly things. In fact, this is also one of the principal approaches in Bhakti Yoga. There also you do the same thing. So they say, you have a desire for worldly objects, you redirect the same desire towards God. I mean, God means towards achieving your higher spiritual goals. The same desire. It's not possible to do away with the desire. The same desire, you just redirect towards it. So that's the way out. Finally, the real desire should be for real happiness. That's the final truth. Because long-lasting happiness, it's possible only in the case of spiritual happiness. All this, we will not get a lasting happiness with all the sensory happiness that we run after. We all know that. But that doesn't mean that, go around with a sour face, say, what are you trying to do? No, I'm trying to control myself. I'm trying to control my senses. I will not have that ice cream. I will not have that ice cream. No, it doesn't work like that. The key is to get happiness out of it. Otherwise, no point. You are suppressing it, and you will end up in depression. If you remember, I have while we are doing this topic of Shreya versus Priya, about the choices, I gave this example of either having a hamburger which is very tasty, full cheesy, but bad for your health, or you can choose to have the sprout for your breakfast, which is bland, not tasty, but it's good for your health. So you often, one is Shreya, another is Priya. So you often fall for this burger. Now I will introduce two more burgers in the same story. There could be a third burger which is of course unhealthy was there, but which is not tasty also. It is bland burger. So it's surely a case of no, you will never have it. But imagine a burger which is which is tasty, of course, it was tasty, but it is also good for your health. It's a healthy burger. So, it's a great thing. It's a win-win situation. You should always try for that. Similarly, when the same logic should apply when you are trying to rein in your senses, the sensory pleasures. Unless you get happiness out of your control, which you are trying to exercise, you will not be able to hold on to it. I mean, you may do it once, you may do it twice, but the third time you will just give in to your things. Because the urge, the traces of, as long as the traces remain in your samskara of, enjoying that pleasure, and also the intellect not getting a chance of telling you that, no, this is not a lasting happiness is something else. You will not be able to do it unless those traces are there. So you'll have to start enjoying not having the ice cream, so that's indirectly put it that way. So it's bad for me. But then again, very difficult. It has to come with practice. It has to come with the inner realization of what is good for you, what is bad for you in the long run, not in the short run, in the long run. Now coming to the, what is the time? Should we show the film? It's an 8-minute film. I mean, I've come to the end. Let's see it. Tal Ben Shahar. Tal Ben Shahar is an American-Israeli psychologist and positive psychology. He's a professor of Harvard. In fact, he created the most popular course in Harvard. It was on happiness, and it was so popular that the classroom was not sufficient. They had to hire a theater. The classes were held in a theater. So he gave this hamburger model, and it's also called the happiness model. And I mean, let's see the video. It's a very interesting 8-minute video. It's very interesting. Let's watch this video.
I spent a significant portion of my teenage years playing squash, hitting the ball up and down the walls, running around the court and in the gym, competing in tournaments around the world. I was 18 years old when one of the most important squash events of the year was approaching. I had been training extremely hard and decided to supplement my training with a special diet. While my eating habits had always been quite healthful, a necessary part of my training regimen, I had occasionally allowed myself the luxury of junk food. However, in the 4 weeks leading up to the tournament, I ate only the leanest fish and chicken, whole grain carbohydrates, and fresh fruit and vegetables. The reward for my abstinence, I resolved, would be a 2-day junk food binge. As soon as the tournament was over, I went straight to my favorite hamburger joint. I ordered 4 hamburgers, and as I walked away from the counter with my prize, I understood how Pavlov's dogs felt at the sound of the bell. I sat myself down and hurriedly unwrapped the first portion of my reward. But as I brought the burger closer to my mouth, I stopped. For a whole month, I had looked forward to this meal, and now, when it was right in front of me, presented to me on a plastic platter, I did not want it. I tried to figure out why, and it was then that I came up with the happiness model, otherwise known as the Hamburger Model. I realized that in the month I'd been eating well, my body felt cleansed and I was surging with energy. I knew that I would enjoy eating the 4 burgers, but that afterwards I would feel unpleasant and fatigued. Staring at my untouched meal, I thought of 4 kinds of hamburgers, each representing a distinct archetype, with each archetype describing a distinct pattern of attitudes and behaviors. The first type of hamburger is the one I just turned down, the tasty junk food burger. Eating this hamburger would yield present benefit in that I would enjoy it, and future detriment in that I would subsequently not feel well. The experience of present benefit and future detriment defines the hedonism archetype. The hedonist lives by the maxim, seek pleasure and avoid pain. She focuses on enjoying the present while ignoring the potential negative consequences of her actions. The second hamburger type which came to mind was a tasteless vegetarian burger, made with only the most healthful ingredients, which would afford me future benefits in that I would subsequently feel good and healthy, and present detriment in that I would not enjoy eating it. The corresponding archetype is that of the rat race. The rat racer, subordinating the present to the future, suffers now for the purpose of some anticipated gain. The third hamburger type, the worst of all possible burgers, is both tasteless and unhealthful. Eating it, I would experience present detriment in that it tastes bad, and suffer future detriment in that it is unhealthful. The parallel to this burger is the nihilism archetype. This archetype describes the person who has lost his lust for life. He neither enjoys the moment, nor does he have a sense of future purpose. The three archetypes that I came up with did not exhaust all possibilities. There was one more to consider. What about a hamburger that would be as tasty as the one I had turned down and as healthy as the vegetarian burger? A burger that would constitute a complete experience with both present and future benefits. This hamburger exemplifies the happiness archetype. A happy person lives secure in the knowledge that the activities that bring her enjoyment in the present will also lead to a fulfilling future. The following graph illustrates the relationship between present and future benefits in the four archetypes. The vertical axis represents the future dimension of the experience, with future benefits on the positive side and future detriment on the negative side. The horizontal axis of the graph represents the present dimension of the experience, with present benefits on the positive side and present detriment on the negative side. Hedonism is about present benefit and future detriment. The rat race quadrant is about future benefit and present detriment. The nihilism quadrant would be about present and future detriment. And the happiness quadrant is about present and future benefits. The archetypes, as I present them, are theoretical formulations of types, not of actual people. To varying degrees and in different combinations, we all have characteristics of the rat racer, the hedonist, the nihilist, and the one who is happy. We all sometimes reside in one of the four quadrants. For example, we all sometimes do things that provide us with present benefit but little future benefit, whether eating an unhealthy but tasty meal, watching a favorite sitcom, or playing video games, or hanging out in a fun place without accomplishing anything in particular. In moderation, there is everything right with being a hedonist. All of us at times find ourselves in the rat race quadrant, focusing on future benefit with no concern for the present. For example, we may be putting a lot of tedious work studying for an exam, or struggling to finish a project at work, or refraining from eating an extra dessert because we know how we'll feel in the morning. Once again, it's inevitable that the right thing to do at times is to sacrifice our present experience for an important future outcome. And unfortunately, no person is exempt from experiencing nihilism, whether as a result of a particular disappointment or failure, or because it's just one of those days. We're human beings, not machines, and we naturally experience ups and downs throughout our lives. And then, of course, we all find ourselves in the happiness quadrant. Whether it's eating food that we love and is good for us, or spending time with people we care about and strengthening our bonds with them while having fun, or engaging in a fun project at work that will help us advance professionally. So while we're all familiar with the four quadrants and will continue to visit all four for the rest of our lives, one of the paths to a happier, more fulfilled life is to increase the amount of time we spend in the happiness quadrant. Here's what you can do. Take a few minutes to make a list of activities that provide you both present benefit, in other words, that are fun for you, and also provide future benefit, in other words, that advance you in some way or are important to you. The list may include eating particular foods, or spending time with your best friend, or reading material that you enjoy and that is in some way beneficial to you, or engaging in a volunteer or work project that fulfills present and future benefit. Keep the list open, in other words, add new activities to the list whenever you think of something new or experience something different that is both fun and constructive. Once you've identified some activities that belong in the happiness quadrant, commit to doing them, just a little bit more than you did before. For instance, Make a point of seeing your best friend for an extra hour each week. Put 45 minutes aside 3 times a week for reading. Volunteer for a particular project that's on your list, and so on. As long as you consistently introduce these activities into your life, even if you only engage in them for short periods of time, your happiness levels will increase markedly. You can become happier. Small changes to your daily life can make a big difference to your life as a whole.
So that was the film. I mean, although it was on happiness, so you should have, although it says that vegetarian burger was tasteless, but they are tasty also. But you should have as much of the fourth burger, tasty as and good for your health also in the long run. Like Smaranananda Ji Maharaj, who is the present president of the Ramakrishna Order, he said something very interesting. He says that just like the goal is blissful, the journey should also be blissful. So you should not artificially try to, control your sensory happiness. It won't work in the long run. It will be, you can say, that it will be a case of a forced smiley. So what you have to do is you have to see that what really gives you happiness, and then once you identify that, you will gradually automatically see that you are moving away from sensory happiness, the pleasure you get out of sensory happiness. So anger, we saw that to sum it all, it does more bad than good. It has some good component also, but then the potentiality to do harm is immense, and it can do a lot of harm to you and to people who are around you, and continuous and uncontrolled anger even can be life-threatening. So the next time you get angry, take a break, and it's not worth it. Thank you so much. Let's end with a prayer. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mriturma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you so much.